today's session. Dear and respected friend, thank you so much for your kind participation in today's GSDS forum weekly dialogue. I, Randhir Kumar Gautam, on behalf of Gandhian School of Democracy and Socialism, welcome you in our following weekly dialogue on the very topic formation of the Janata Party government in March 1977. You know, it was arguably the most significant political event in the independent history. It is a pleasure and indeed an honor to have available with us respected chair, distinguished speaker, and dear and respected friend. I welcome chair of today's session, Shri Vijay Pratap ji, who is a well-known activist, environmentalist, and currently is a senior fellow at Rajiv Gandhi Foundation. We are very thankful that he accepted our invitation. We welcome a speaker of today's session, Shri Ravi Visvesvaraya Sharda Prasad ji, a political activist and political analyst. We welcome you, sir. We welcome discussant of today's session, Professor Jayant Tomar, HOD of Gandhian School of Democracy and Socialism, ITM University. We welcome Professor Gyan, Dr. Carlos, Professor Mohanty, and all friends who are present here. GSDS Forum is a platform to promote understanding of dynamics of society with quest for freedom, justice, equality, and fraternity. GSDS Forum stands for Gandhian School of Democracy and Socialism Forum, which is a part of ITM University, Gwalior. We focuses on knowledge and dialogue among concerned persons. We organize dialogue on every Friday to invite people from different fields of life to share their knowledge and praxis to understand the world in a better sense. Let me give a brief introduction to Honorable Speaker. Shri Ravi Visvesvaraya Sharda Prasad is an alumnus of Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, and Carnegie University. He is highly technically sound analyst. He has given so many lectures on technological startup. He has deep knowledge of defense sector. He has a unique perspective on emergency and the context of emergency because his father, H.Y. Sharda Prasad, was information advisor to Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and his maternal uncle, K.S. Radhakrishnan, he was also head of Gandhi New Delhi. And K.S. Radhakrishnan was the closest associate of Loknayak Jayaprakash Narayan. So he has a kind of very personal encounter with the context of emergency and later Janata Party government. So his insight will give a kind of sense of the history which we don't even read in the books. So he will talk in a very personal context of the information. And the topic that we have choose the formation of Janata Party in 1977 of March. It was a kind of big history and good event because the formation of Janata Party is a kind of event which we don't conceptualize in the sense of democratic movement in that sense, because we have a very not in that sense rigorous study of that context in a very impartial manner. So we invite Visvesvaraya Sharda Prasad ji for his presentation, and we look forward for all of us for a good engagement with your input and question answer. So Professor
Tomar ji, Adharniya Professor Randhir Kumar Gautam ji, Adharniya Dr. Alok Bajpai ji, Adharniya Dr. Veronica khangchian ji, Adharniya Professor Anand Kumar ji. My heartfelt gratitude for you for your very kind and generous introduction and greetings on a very, very cold and stormy evening here in the Himalayas and mountains. And most gratefully thank the Gandhian School of Democracy and Socialism Forum, and especially Professor Randhir Kumar Gautam ji for giving me this opportunity of interacting with all of the distinguished persons present here and exchanging viewpoints on the formation of the Janata Party government in March 1977 and how Morarji Desai became the Prime Minister. And I'm not a social scientist, not a historian, not a political scientist. I'm a hardcore engineer. But as Professor Randhir Kumar Gautam ji had said, I have a unique perspective into these events because my maternal uncle, K.S. Radhakrishna, he was head of the Gandhi Peace Foundation, and he was the closest aide and advisor of Loknayak Jai Prakash Narayan and Radhakrishnan Mama. He was instrumental in making Morarji Desai the Prime Minister in preference to Jagjeevan Ram and Charan Singh and Atal Bihari Vajpai, who had more MPs backing them. And my father, H.Y. Sharda Prasad, he was one of the key advisors of Indira Gandhi, and my father and my mama, my maternal uncle, tried very hard to bridge the growing rift between Indira Gandhi and her father's closest friend, JP, and many of the negotiations between Indira Gandhi's side and JP's side took place in our home. So while serving tea and snacks to them as a young schoolboy, I managed to overhear a lot of the conversations. Now, the main issues I wish to discuss in my talk are, first of all, that the Janata Party came into being because Indira Gandhi made the very elementary blunder of jailing her opponents together, and this allowed them to unite against her. And they had nothing in common with each other than their hatred of Indira Gandhi. And many of them detested each other much more than they despised Indira Gandhi. Then the second point I wish to make is that Indira Gandhi ended the emergency and called for elections, knowing very well that she would lose badly. And this is contrary to the widely held belief that the intelligence agencies had told her that she would win easily. The intelligence agencies did indeed tell her that she would win 340 seats, but she was so shrewd that she was cognizant that they would tell her what they thought she would like to hear. Third point I wish to make is that I would like to describe in detail the deals and the negotiations, even verging on treacheries and conspiracies, by which Morarji Desai emerged as the Prime Minister, even though Jagjeevan Ram and Charan Singh and Atal Bihari Vajpai had more MPs supporting them. And I'd like to touch on the role of Atal Bihari Vajpai, about which very little is known in the public domain, and the key role of Nanaji Deshmukh, who was instrumental in unifying the disparate parties together. And a group of Sarvodhya Gandhians, mainly my maternal uncle K.S. Radhakrishna, they persuaded Loknayak Jayaprakash Narayan and Acharya J.B. Kripalani to make Morarji Desai the prime minister, because in their view, either Jagjeevan Ram or Charan Singh would be disastrous for the nation. If one of them was made the prime minister, within a few weeks, the other one would pull him down, because Charan Singh and Jagjeevan Ram detested each other. So this is a summary of what I will be talking about today. And my talk is a very personal account of the events rather than a rigorous scholarly analysis. I'm not a professional political analyst, and I don't have any background in social sciences. I'm just talking about the experiences of my family being involved in all this. And my father, H.Y. Sharda Prasad, he was always very puzzled as to someone as wily as Indira Gandhi. She made the elementary blunder of jailing the various opposition leaders together in Tihar jail, Ambala jail, Rohtak jail. So this allowed them to interact with each other daily and unite against her. And my hypothesis is that the emergency arrests were not really well planned or well thought out by Indira Gandhi, and that she and Siddhartha Shankar Ray did not know what Sanjay Gandhi and Bansilal wanted to do, and vice versa, that Sanjay Gandhi and Bansilal were not in sync with Indira Gandhi. And my father, H.Y. Sharda Prasad, he was of the opinion that the emergency was a panic overreaction on the part of Indira Gandhi after Jayaprakash Narayan, Morarji Desai, and Jagjeevan Ram had pushed her into a corner and not given her face-saving escape route. And my father often remarked that Indira Gandhi used 100 times more force than was necessary. And even though Indira Gandhi was planning some sort of a crackdown on fundamentalist organizations after Jayaprakash Narayan had allied with Nanaji Deshmukh and the RSS, and after Lalit Narayan Mishra was assassinated on 2nd January 1975, Indira Gandhi stated many times that the nation was in need of shock treatment. But such a crackdown or shock treatment on the RSS, the ABVP, the VHP, the Anand Marg, and other fundamentalist organizations, including from the Islamic side, did not have taken the form of the emergency and press censorship, abrogation of fundamental rights, and other atrocities. And the eminent jurist Fali Sam Nariman, he revealed to me some months ago that my father had told him a few weeks into the emergency that if Indira Gandhi had a better understanding of constitutional law and constitutional history, then she would not have declared the emergency at all. And this was in spite of constitutional law being one of her subjects at Oxford. So while she had been contemplating some sort of a crackdown on the JP movement and on the RSS for several weeks, the Allahabad High Court judgment was the straw which broke the camel's back and drove her really into a corner. And shortly after Justice Jagmohan Lal Sinha had delivered his verdict on 12th June 1975, she had dictated her resignation, and R.K. Dhawan had typed it out, and she had initially intended to make the Congress party president, Devkant Barua, as a figurehead prime minister and called for fresh elections. And she would have won, maybe with a much reduced majority, but it was likely that she would have won. And after her victory, she intended to reclaim the prime ministership from DK Barua. But even before she could sign her resignation, Jagjeevan Ram, he pushed very hard to be named the prime minister, and so did YB Chavan. And Indira Gandhi was very well aware that if either Jagjeevan Ram or YB Chavan took over as the prime minister, then she would never ever be able to regain the prime ministership. And when YB Chavan was the home minister, he had actually tapped her phones, he had tapped the prime minister's phones. So before she could send her resignation in, Sanjay Gandhi rushed back from the Maruti factory, and then he seized total control, and Sanjay Gandhi firmly quashed all speculation of her stepping down. And in support of my conjecture that the arrests of 25th and 26th June 1975 were a panic overreaction by Indira Gandhi, and that neither she nor Sanjay Gandhi had planned them meticulously. So in support of this, my conjecture, I wish to just state the following points. That first, the telephone lines of the people who were to be arrested were not cut, nor was the electricity supply to their residences cut off. And Jai Prakash Narayan, he was arrested from the residence of my uncle K.S. Radhakrishna at the Gandhi Peace Foundation on Rouse Avenue. And while my aunt Kamala was serving the police officers coffee and snacks, Radhakrishnan's son, my cousin K.R. Chandrahas, he went into the annex and he telephoned numerous leaders and he warned them that they should escape. And Chandrahas telephoned the RSS headquarters at Jhandewala, and so Nanaji Deshmukh and Madan Lal Khurana and others were able to escape. They were able to escape minutes before the police arrived. And another piece of supporting evidence for my conjecture is that the arrest warrants, which were being cyclo-styled and signed just about at that time by the various subdivisional magistrates, and the cyclo-styling machines broke down even as the subdivisional magistrates were signing the warrants. More and more requests kept coming in for various arrests. And again, while the electricity was cut off to the newspaper offices on Bahadur Shah Zafar Marg, the Motherland newspaper, Motherland was the party organ, the party newspaper of the Bharatiya Janasangh, and Motherland was able to carry very detailed accounts of all the arrests all across the country, because its office and its printing press at Jhandewala were not shut down. The Indian Express and other offices were shut down. Electricity supply was cut off, including to the Congress Party's own National Herald newspaper. So while Motherland's editor K.R. Malkani was arrested, and in fact he was put solitary confinement, but his reporters were free to report on the arrests and print the edition, and that was a nationwide reporting scoop by the Motherland, and that edition became a collector's item. So, and again, you know, when Chandrahas, he telephoned Morarji Desai, Desai replied that he would not escape, but he would wait for the police to come and arrest him. And when Chandrahas phoned Raj Narayan, the police had just arrived just after Chandrahas made the phone call, and Raj Narayan too was put in solitary confinement. So in addition to Indira Gandhi not taking the basic precautions of cutting off the phone lines and the electricity supply at the RSS headquarters and at the Gandhi Peace Foundation, she made a further elementary blunder of jailing the various opposition leaders together in Tihar jail, Ambala jail, Rohtak jail, Bangalore jail, and then Bengaluru, Lal Krishna Advani of the Bharatiya Janata Sangh, jailed together with the socialist Professor Madhu Dandavate. And then after both of them were shifted to Haryana so that they could be under the control of Bansi Lal, even there both Lal Krishna Advani and Madhu Dandavate, they were jailed together with Biju Patnaik of the Bharatiya Lokdal and P.L. Modi of the Swatantra Party, and Bhairav Singh Shekhawat of the RSS. He was imprisoned together with Ashoka Mehta, and Ashoka Mehta had joined the Congress after being expelled from the Praja Socialist Party. And Chaudhary Charan Singh of the Bharatiya Lokdal Party, he was jailed together with Prakash Singh Badal of the Shiromani Akali Dal in Tihar jail. And Charan Singh and Prakash Singh Badal, they became very good friends by overplaying cards with each other. So it's just very, very puzzling that she jailed all her opponents together and they could become friends and they could interact all the time and they could plan against her. Again, while Charan Singh was jailed together with the Shiromani Akali Dal, and the Akalis were about the only party who staunchly opposed the emergency throughout. Charan Singh, he cut a deal with Indira Gandhi and he was released in March 1976 together with his followers. So it is really very baffling that the people whom she put in solitary confinement were Morarji Desai, Chandrasekhar, and of her own party Chandrasekhar, Raj Narayan, K.R. Malkani of the RSS, and Jyotirmoy Bosu of the CPM, of the Communist Party CPM. But she did not jail many of the others. And Chandrasekhar was actually one of those who had been very close to her. He had helped her a lot in 1969. His support was very, very crucial. And Chandrasekhar, till the very end, his political mentor was Jai Prakash Narayan, and Chandrasekhar tried till the very end to bring about an understanding between Indira Gandhi and JP, but she put Chandrasekhar into solitary confinement, first in Chandigarh and then in Patiala. But again, surprisingly, Chandrasekhar and Indira Gandhi remained on very, very good terms, even though she had put him in solitary detention. Morarji Desai was also put in solitary confinement in a guest house in Sona in Haryana. And that is also where JP had been taken to initially before JP was sent to the PGI in Chandigarh. But surprisingly, the people whom she regarded as the far more dangerous threats, they were allowed to interact with each other. And most puzzling are the instances of George Fernandez and Nanaji Deshmukh. And regarding Nanaji Deshmukh, Indira Gandhi, she had long regarded Nanaji as the most formidable of her opponents, and Nanaji's vision of India was diametrically opposite hers. And Indira Gandhi referred to Nanaji as the Chanakya of our times. And in fact, most of those who were arrested in the initial phase of arrest on 25th, 26th June 1975 were those who were the followers of Nanaji Deshmukh. And actually, it was Jai Prakash Narayan's tying up with Nanaji Deshmukh in 1974, which first made her think that a crackdown was necessary. She had repeatedly warned JP about getting involved with the RSS, but JP turned a deaf ear to her numerous cautionary messages warning him not to get involved with the RSS. And okay, just let me digress a little, because this is a topic which has become very much in the news, very controversial during the last few months. And that is that during the emergency, Indira Gandhi amended the preamble to the constitution to include the word socialist. And that was to fulfill her commitments to JP. Because right from 1946, JP had been campaigning for India to be declared as a socialist democratic republic. But because she clearly foresaw that the RSS would exploit JP to enter the national mainstream, she also took the additional precaution of inserting the term secular into the preamble of the Constitution. So she could very clearly see that the RSS was exploiting JP. She warned JP repeatedly not to tie up with the RSS. And because JP ignored her warning, she really thought that some kind of crackdown was necessary. And that really was the origin of the emergency. And in fact, one of her prime objectives during the emergency was to destroy all religious fundamentalist organizations. She wanted to destroy the BHP, the Anand Marg, the RSS, the ABVP, and many of the Islamic fundamentalist organizations, also the Jamaat and others. And about the ABVP, Indira Gandhi was even more antagonistic to the ABVP, the Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, than she was to the parent RSS, because with her personal knowledge of growing up in Europe in the 1930s, she was very well aware that the revolutions were begun by students and that the fascist and Nazi movements in 1930 Europe was spearheaded by youth stormtroopers. Therefore, she really wanted to finish the ABVP and the RSS once and for all. And in fact, about the ABVP, Arun Jaitley of the ABVP, he was one of the first persons whom the police tried to arrest. And as they hammered on his door, on the front door of his house, Arun Jaitley managed to escape from the rear door. He made a stirring speech at Delhi University. And then he tried to make his getaway on a two-wheeler scooter, but then he crashed into a barrier at Timarpur. And Jaitley was in jail from the first day of the emergency right till the time the elections were declared. And as I said earlier, because Sanjay Gandhi and Indira Gandhi, they had blundered by not cutting the phone lines at the RSS headquarters and at the Gandhi Peace Foundation. So my cousin K.R. Chandras was able to warn Nanaji Deshmukh and others to escape, and they just managed to escape just 2 or 3 minutes before the police arrived. And in August 1975, the Punjab police, they were on the trail of a Bharatiya Janasangha leader of Punjab, Krishan Lal Sharma, and they followed him to a house in Delhi's Safdarjung development area in South Delhi. And they saw a prosperous looking middle-aged man dressed in a very natty Western suit, alighting from a car and entering the building. So they swooped in to capture KL Sharma. Now, KL Sharma's visitor, he had the identity documents of an NRI businessman, but a police officer, he recognized his voice and pronunciation as that of Nanaji Deshmukh. And then this Punjab police officer, in a very scholarly way, he informed the Indira Gandhi's office of the capture of Deshmukh with a verse and classical Persian, Farsi. We spread our wings to catch shrimp, but a crocodile swam by himself into our nets. So then the police, they rushed down to trace the car from which Nanaji Deshmukh had alighted. And actually it was Subramanian Swamy who had driven Nanaji Deshmukh there, and he went to find a parking spot, and seeing the police tried to catch him, Subramanian Swamy managed to drive away in a high-speed chase through the lanes of Green Park. But again, after having captured Nanaji Deshmukh, quite by chance, very, very surprisingly and amazingly, Arun Jaitley and Nanaji Deshmukh, they were imprisoned together in Tihar jail, in the same cell, and they were next to Charan Singh and Prakash Singh Badal. And on the other side with the Surendra Mohan, the socialist Surendra Mohan, and a few cells away was maternal uncle K.S. Radhakrishna. So all of these people from different parties, they all managed to get together. Jaitley and Nanaji Deshmukh, they were very outstanding organizers, and they had the ability to make friends across political parties, across ideologies. And so Arun Jaitley and Nanaji Deshmukh, they were uniting the various disparate political parties to oppose Indira Gandhi and Sanjay Gandhi. And then while hearing the habeas corpus plea of my mama K.S. Radhakrishna, that was argued by retired Justice B.M. Tarkunde. So Justice Seshayangar Rangarajan of the Delhi High Court, he ordered that all political prisoners should be allowed weekly visits from their families and also be given regular medical checkups. And who gave these regular medical checkups? These weekly medical checkups were given by Ramnath Goenka's physician, Dr. J.K. Jain of the RSS. And Dr. J.K. Jain, he brought them also all the latest political news and political gossip. He kept them up to date of what was happening across the country. And these kind of weekly updates from the RSS and from J.K. Jain, it greatly increased the acceptability of the RSS among the socialist politicians and the secular politicians who had been imprisoned in Tihar jail. And Justice A. Shankar Rangarajan, he was from my mother's family. And he also ordered the release of Kuldeep Nair, and a furious Indira Gandhi immediately transferred Justice A. Shankar Rangarajan to the Guwahati High Court, and she demoted his fellow judge, who was Justice Agarwal, and she demoted Justice Agarwal back to the Delhi District Courts. Now about George Fernandez, again, ever since George Fernandez had led this very violent nationwide strike by the railwaymen in May 1974, Indira Gandhi thought that George Fernandez would assassinate her and probably in a bomb explosion in Varanasi. She had received the intelligence reports about this, and her E-Day fixe got cemented when a main fundraiser, Lalit Narayan Mishra, he was killed in a bomb explosion in the railway station in January 1975. And after that, she kept remarking to all her aides that George Fernandez would soon kill her, again, while she traveled frequently by train all across the country. And she said, okay, George Fernandez is going to kill me sooner or later. And again, let me just come back to some of the arrests. On the night of 25th, 26th June 1975, Chandrasekhar was arrested from Rivoli Theatre in Connaught Place, where he was watching a late night movie together with Koirala, B.P. Koirala of Nepal. And even though Chandrasekhar, prominent Congress MP, the leader of the Young Turks faction, and he was very, very instrumental in helping Indira Gandhi to defeat Morarji Desai, the syndicate in 1969. And Indira Gandhi had long wanted to make him a cabinet minister, but Chandrasekhar, after the Allahabad High Court judgment, he had publicly called on her to resign. And Chandrasekhar was actually the political heir of JP, and he had hosted a dinner in honor of JP just a couple of days before the emergency was declared. So So this officer, the police officer who arrested Chandrasekhar, he took Chandrasekhar to a nearby phone booth and he told him, I'm delaying the recording of the time of your arrest in the case diary by half an hour. I'm giving you 30 minutes. During these 30 minutes, phone whomever you can and want them to escape. And Chandrasekhar was jailed first in Chandigarh and then in Patiala in solitary confinement. But Chandrasekhar's conversations to various other leaders warning them to escape, they were overheard by a telephone operator. And this telephone operator, she phoned George Fernandez. And George Fernandez was holidaying with his wife, Leela Kabir, she was the daughter of Humayun Kabir, and his infant son in Odisha and the resort of Gopalpur on Sea. And George Fernandez had earned the gratitude of all the female telephone operators across the country by fighting hard to improve their working conditions. So clad in just his lungi, Fernandez managed to escape minutes before the police arrived to arrest him. And then he was masquerading as a fisherman. George Fernandez, he traveled to Gujarat and Tamil Nadu and Kerala, organizing the resistance to the emergency. And Sanjay Gandhi and his cabal had issued verbal orders that George Fernandez was to be killed as soon as he was captured. Now, even though my father, he was very strongly opposed to George Fernandez's propounding of violence, and Indira Gandhi had got it into her head that George Fernandez was going to assassinate her in a bomb explosion. But George Fernandez and my father, they had the same set of friends among Kannada intellectuals and cultural figures. Because even when George Fernandez was underground on the run, he kept his keen interest in Kannada culture and literature. He kept in touch with my father's intellectual mentor, the polymath Kota Shivaramakarant. And Kota Shivaramakarant was vehemently opposed to the emergency. And George Fernandez was also in close touch with my father's very close friend, the very eminent novelist U.R. Ananthamurthy. And U.R. Ananthamurthy and the noted actress Snehalata Reddy, they planned to bomb the Vidhana Saudha legislature building in Bengaluru. And in order to capture George Fernandez, his brother Lawrence Fernandez and Michael Fernandez, as well as his close associate Snehalata Reddy, they were jailed in Bengaluru and they were tortured brutally, but they refused to divulge his whereabouts. And actually, Snehalata Reddy died as a result of the brutal imprisonment. She died a few days after she was released. And George Fernandez, he grew a beard and he disguised himself as a Sikh Sardarji, and he took the alias of Khushwant Singh. And in Delhi, George Fernandez, he first stayed with CJK Reddy.
आवाज चली गई है रवि जी की।
मुझे लगता है वो नेटवर्क शायद उनका कट गया है।
मेरा भी जब कटा था तो आपने मेरे को 10 मिनट तक एंटर ही नहीं दी।
वो को-होस्ट जो थे वो थोड़े से उनमें को-होस्ट बनाना बाकी रह गया था, इस वजह से वो हैंग कर रहा था लोगों की एंट्री के समय। जस्ट 1 मिनट दीजिए, मैं जरा बात कर लेता हूँ।
1 मिनट। अच्छा,
रवि जी जी।
Hi, activity go down because there's a big, it's a big stormy evening here.
ठीक, वो जरा कैमरा आप ऑफ करेंगे तो आवाज और भी क्लियर हो जाएगा. If you can switch off your camera, then it will.
Stop my video then. Okay,
Yes.
okay. So I'll just continue with only the sound and not the video. Okay. Okay. So where was I? I think I was saying that Fernandez was staying with CGK Reddy. Yeah. Okay. So George Fernandez, he was staying with CGK Reddy. And about CGK Reddy, he had been a hero of the Subhash Chandra Bose's INA, the Indian National Army. He was a member of parliament and he was the business manager of the Hindu newspaper. And the places where George Fernandez stayed were people whom you really couldn't even suspect of being sympathetic towards George Fernandez. He moved to the Vasant Vihar residence of a senior defense officer, Karnataka Captain Huil Gol, and his medical doctor daughter, Dr. Girija Huil Gol. And from there, George Fernandez, he shifted to the Jorbag residence of a close associate of Mahatma Gandhi, R. Chandrachudan. And Chandrachudan also was a very well-known journalist, and he was a manager with the Hindu newspaper. And my parents used to visit Chandrachudan very often. They'd known him since the 1940s when Chandrachudan was the host and the aide of Mahatma Gandhi. And during his long stint with Associated Press and Reuters in the 1930s and 1940s, Chandrachudan was instrumental in publicizing Mahatma Gandhi to the Western world on a daily basis. So the people who hid George Fernandez were people whom Indira Gandhi and Sanjay Gandhi and the intelligence agencies would really have absolutely no idea where that's people who were very close to the government were actually hiding George Fernandez. And I don't know, my parents used to visit Chandrachudan 2 to 3 times a month. And I don't know if they realized that his Sardarji guest, Khushwant Singh, was actually George Fernandez. And again, a very senior officer of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, KG Ramakrishna. He was our neighbor and our close family friend. He was a close associate of Ram Manohar Lohia before he joined the government, and he actually joined the government at Jawaharlal Nehru's invitation from the Indian Express. So KG Ramakrishna, he actually would drive George Fernandez around Delhi, being a senior officer of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. And some mining businessmen in Baroda, from whom George Fernandez was trying to procure the dynamite, they were being investigated by the income tax authorities. And in return for immunity from for tax evasion, they provided information about George Fernandez's whereabouts. And just as the Delhi police were about to capture him, Fernandez, again, he managed to escape. He jumped onto a flight from Kolkata, from Delhi to Kolkata on 10th March 1976. And I don't know if it was, if he had his contacts or something, but while on the flight, he was not recognized and he was not captured. And in Kolkata, he was George Fernandez. He was assisted by the journalist and the writer Vijay Narayan. So George Fernandez, he brought out a cyclo-style newsletter from the St. Paul's Cathedral. And Vijay Narayan had disguised himself as a Muslim weaver of Varanasi, and he used to distribute this newsletter. And an informer in George Fernandez's taxi drivers union in Mumbai, he revealed that George Fernandez had been in contact with Father Rudolph of the St. Paul's Cathedral in Kolkata. And a senior police officer, he became suspicious of why a bearded Sikh Sardarji and a Muslim weaver were staying on the premises of St. Paul's Cathedral, working as odd jobs men. So he had this Muslim weaver tailed, and a search of Vijay Narayan's belongings. They revealed correspondence with people who were close to George Fernandez, and pretending to be a parishioner, the senior police officer, he patiently built up a friendship with the bearded Khushwant Singh, and he casually engaged this Sadaji Khushwant Singh in conversation. And after a while, this police officer, pretending to be a parishioner, he broke into colloquial Marathi. And unthinkingly, Khushwant Singh spontaneously replied in colloquial Marathi, and this police officer said, "Oh, we got you, George." And I said earlier, Sanjay Gandhi and his cabal had issued verbal orders that George Fernandez should be killed as soon as he was captured. But this police officer, he was actually notorious for encounters, but this police officer, he insisted on getting written orders on file signed by Indira Gandhi herself that George Fernandez was to be killed. He was not going to just take Sanjay Gandhi's verbal orders on record. He wanted Indira Gandhi herself to sign it. And Father Rodolphe of the St. Paul's Cathedral and other socialists in Kolkata, they immediately contacted international journalists and diplomats in Kolkata. And again, on that date, when George Fernandez was captured, 10th June 1976, Indira Gandhi was on a visit to the Soviet Union, and she was accompanied by Rajiv and Sonia, as well as Sanjay and Maneka. And normally, this police officers encrypted for your eyes only telegram cable to Indira Gandhi. It would have been decrypted by R.K. Dhawan. But on that date, luckily, Sanjay Gandhi and Maneka Gandhi, they were visiting a Soviet space facility a few hours away, and R.K. Dhawan had accompanied them, and therefore this top secret cable was decrypted by N.K. Seshan. And N.K. Seshan had been the trusted aide of Jawaharlal Nehru and Indira Gandhi ever since 1944, and Nehru affectionately referred to N.K. Seshan as the son he never had. And just at that very instant, Indira Gandhi and my father, they were addressing a press conference, and reporters from numerous countries were present. And a very shocked and aghast N.K. Seshan, he wrote out a note in Tamil to my father, and my father was sitting next to Indira Gandhi. And my father, realized what needed to be done under the guise of getting a friendly journalist to ask a question. My father scribbled a note in Telugu to G.K. Reddy of the Hindu newspaper, Ganapati Keshav Reddy of the Hindu newspaper, and N.K. Seshan, he also wrote out a note in Malayalam to V.K. Madhavan Kutti of the Mathrubhumi. And these two, very, very seasoned veteran political editors, they instinctively realized what needed to be done. Although they could not use the scoop themselves, they quietly tipped off the BBC correspondent who was sitting in front of them and said, put out this flash news. And then they also told a prominent foreign journalist from a friendly nation, socialist nation, to stand up and ask, Madam Prime Minister, what do you have to say about the appeal by various international statesmen to spare the life of George Fernandez? And this was the first that Indira Gandhi was hearing about the capture of George Fernandez. But Indira Gandhi, she was always in control of herself and taking very quickly on her feet. She furnished complete details of the numerous acts of violence that George Fernandez had planned, of the foreign sources that were funding George Fernandez. And she very emphatically declared that George Fernandez would have to stand trial for terrorism. And within hours, from the socialist countries, Willy Brandt, Bruno Kreisky, Olof Palme, and Michael Foot, at the urging of C.G.K. Reddy, they publicly appealed to her to spare George Fernandez. Now, in spite of all this, that she felt that George Fernandez was planning to assassinate her. Sanjay Gandhi had given the verbal order that George Fernandez was to be killed as soon as he was captured. But even then, George Fernandez, He was immediately flown from Kolkata by a special plane to Delhi. He was lodged in the very same ward in Tihar jail as other political leaders. He was not put into solitary confinement with all his fellow accused in the Baroda dynamite uh, conspiracy. They were all jailed together. But prior to being sent to Tihar jail, George Fernandez, he was brutally tortured in Red Fort for a couple of nights. In Kolkata, Vijay Narayan was also tortured in Kolkata, where he was sent to Delhi. But again, he was jailed, Vijay Narayan was jailed together with George Fernandez. And so all these people could get together in the jail and unite against Indira Gandhi. JP and Moraji, that very strongly disapproved of George Fernandez's espousal of violence for years. But George Fernandez, he had this heroic image, he had this natural charisma. And so George Fernandez, in Tihar jail, he united a lot of numerous leaders across the political spectrum to join together with him to oppose Indira Gandhi. And George Fernandez, he had frequently declared that the non-violent struggle against Indira Gandhi would not succeed, and he viewed JP and Nanaji Deshmukh and Moraji Desai's opposition to Indira Gandhi, their opposition to not using violence, he viewed them as naive and futile, the non-violent agitation against Indira Gandhi. And while in Tihar, in fact, George Fernandez, he actually criticized JP as well as my mama, K.S. Radhakrishna, because both JP and K.S. Radhakrishna, they were in close touch with Professor P.N. Dhar and with my father to try to continue to seek a peaceful rapprochement with Indira Gandhi. And in spite of all this, JP, when the elections were declared, JP insisted that George Fernandez should be given the ticket from Muzaffarpur, even though they did not see eye to eye. JP strongly disapproved of any violence, especially by George Fernandez. So even as he tried to unite the various opposition leaders in Tihar jail, George Fernandez, he harshly accused Biju Patnaik, H.M. Patel, and Ashoka Mehta of again trying to reach a secret deal with Om Mehta and Sanjay Gandhi. And Biju Patnaik, his huge business empire was suffering, and Biju Patnaik's wife, she was trying to persuade him to drop his opposition to Indira Gandhi and to concentrate on running his numerous business enterprises. But photographs of George Fernandez being led in chains and handcuffs to stand trial in Teej Hazari courts, they captured the imagination of the nation. And there was this 23-year-old duo of Sushma Sharma and Swaraj Kaushal. They came forward to defend George Fernandez under the guidance of retired Justice V.M. Tarkunde and Acharya J.B. Kripalani. But V.M. Tarkunde and J.B. Kripalani, they hired Sushma Sharma and Swaraj Kaushal to defend George Fernandez in Teej Hazari. And in fact, they got married during the course of the trial. And George Fernandez, he was released only after the Janata government came to power. Sushma Swaraj led his campaign from Muzaffarpur while he remained in prison. And again, the police officers in Tihar jail, they sent complete details to Indira Gandhi of how Nanaji Deshmukh, George Fernandez, Arun Jaitley, they were meeting all the other imprisoned leaders and urging them to unite to overthrow her. But even then, she did not isolate George Fernandez, Nanaji Deshmukh, Arun Jaitley. So it was just very, very puzzling how she made this elementary blunder. And again, one of George Fernandez's co-accused in the Baroda dynamite conspiracy, Dr. G.G. Parikh, he was a physician, he was a freedom fighter, and he was a stalwart of the Praja Socialist Party. And he said, he always felt that she did not have the genes or the mental makeup to be a dictator. And Dr. Parikh, he had been first jailed in Yarawada jail together with the RSS workers. And then when he was transferred to Tihar, he was jailed together with George Fernandez and with all the other co-accused in the dynamite uh, conspiracy. So all these people, they could come together and they could actually suppress a lot of the evidence in the Baroda dynamite trial because they just were all imprisoned together and they could uh, cross-verify each other's testimony and evidence. And it's just very surprising that Indira Gandhi permitted all this to happen. P.N. Dhar, her secretary, had described her as a half-hearted dictator. And again, a lot of very prominent opposition leaders, they were not arrested at all, especially those from the Congress who had opposed her in 1969. None of them were arrested. Kamaraj, Nijlingappa, Neelam Sajiva Reddy, S.K. Patil, Atulya Ghosh, Shanti Bhushan, they were left alone. And again, also many of the socialists were not arrested, S.M. Joshi, N.G. Gore, they were not arrested. And again, according to Dr. G.G. Parikh, this was because Indira Gandhi was maintaining a channel open for discussion with the socialists. She wanted to avoid the confrontation as much as possible. And most astonishingly, C.G.K. Reddy, he was not arrested either. And he was the person who had housed George Fernandez. So C.G.K. Reddy, he traveled abroad frequently. He was meeting the socialist statements such as Michael Fort, Harold Wilson, Willy Brandt, Bruno Kreisky, Olof Palme of Sweden. C.G.K. Reddy was meeting all of them very frequently, and he was addressing meetings, castigating the emergency, but he was not put under surveillance. He was not arrested. And even the Huil Gol father and daughter team were not arrested. They had sheltered George Fernandez, and in fact, they'd raised substantial funds for George Fernandez. And also, several of the opposition leaders took their, not being arrested as a blow to their ego, that they were not important enough to be considered a threat to Indira Gandhi, let alone being jailed. They were not even put under surveillance. Acharya J.B. Kripalani, he went to extraordinary lengths to get himself arrested at Rajghat on 2nd October. Acharya J.B. Kripalani, he threw an emotional tantrum, insisting that he should be arrested. And again, much to his discomfiture, Kripalani was released very quickly. And, my father, he felt that Indira Gandhi was overconfident that the various parties would not be able to unite against her. Because in March 1976, Charan Singh, who was in Tihar jail, together with Prakash Singh Badal, Charan Singh and several of his supporters, they came to a deal with Indira Gandhi and they were released from Tihar jail. And so Indira Gandhi knew that she would play on Charan Singh's ambitions and hatreds to sow dissension among her opponents. Then I just take a break of a couple of minutes to drink some water. If there are any questions, just let me know, then I'll just come back in a minute.
Yes.
Are you able to hear
please.
clearly? Or
Yes.
Should I read the video? Because
I request.
I think the storm has stopped here.
Okay. You can take your time. Meanwhile, we can start with discussant or some questions, answers.
Just a minute, because I'll just take some. It's very cold here and there's a storm. So I just need to take something warm. So. Okay. Okay, are you able to see me now? And
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So So just let me resume. I've just spoken about how Indira Gandhi was. My father thought that Indira Gandhi was overconfident that some of these would not be able to unite against her, and even the RSS about the RSS. By September 1976, even those RSS activists who had been staunchly opposing the emergency. They were ready to surrender, throw in the towel, because the families of about 40,000 RSS activists had been jailed, and their families were suffering financially very bad. About 80 RSS members had died in custody. And again, Dr. Gigi Parikh, he was a noted freedom fighter. So he wrote about how the RSS cadres in the Yerawada jail, they wrote letters of apology to Indira Gandhi, pledging that they would not indulge in political activities. And this is something that is really not very much known. But in November 1976, over 30 leaders of the RSS, led by Madhav Rao Mule, Dattopant Thengadi, Moropant Pingale, so many of these RSS leaders, they wrote to Indira Gandhi, promising that if all the RSS workers were first released from prison, then the RSS would actually support the emergency. So they said, Dattopant Thengadi was a very senior RSS leader and trade union activist. So Dattopant Thengadi, Moropant Pingale, Madhav Rao, all wrote to Indira Gandhi saying that if you release all the RSS workers from prison, then we will actually support the emergency. And this is something that is called a document of surrender. And it was processed by my father. It was supposed to take effect from January 1977. So this correspondence was there, written in November 1976, and the agreement to take effect from January 1977. And this is something that is not really known much about. And again, on 16th December 1976, two key members of Sanjay Gandhi's cabal, Om Mehta, who was the Minister of State for Home, and Muhammad Yunus, who was Indira Gandhi's old family loyalist. So Om Mehta and Muhammad Yunus, they invited some of the non-Hindutva, the secular opposition leaders for talks. Biju Patnaik, Ashoka Mehta, H.M. Patel, N.G. Gore, Samar Guha, Pilu Modi, Krishnakant, who became the vice president. So Om Mehta invited them for talks, and these secular opposition leaders mooted that if some of the more stringent provisions of the emergency was relaxed, then they would be willing to work together with Indira Gandhi on many policies in the national interest, and that in other areas where they would not work with her, but they would not oppose her either. And even the DMK, the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, whose government in Tamil Nadu had been dismissed by Indira Gandhi, they too agreed that that they would not oppose her. And actually, Indira Gandhi's strategy was to isolate the RSS from the other secular opposition parties and actually have some kind of an understanding with the secular opposition parties and isolate RSS. And that was even though she did not isolate the RSS activists in jail. It was just very, very surprising how she wanted to deal with them politically, but not, she didn't put them in solitary confinement in jail. So about these talks with Om Mehta and Muhammad Yunus, Atal Bihari Vajpai, he was not invited for these talks by Om Mehta, but he found out about them. And on his own initiative, Atal Bihari Vajpai went and met Om Mehta. And there were certain transcripts of this conversation, were taped. And these conversations between Vajpai and Om Mehta indicate that Vajpai, he offered to sever his connections with the RSS, and he offered to reveal the whereabouts of many RSS activists who were still underground and who had not been arrested and whose whereabouts were not known, such as Madhav Rao Mule, Subramanian Swamy. So Vajpai offered to reveal their whereabouts. And then on
I request Rajiv to summarize in 5 to 10 minutes, then we'll have some discussion and question answer also.
Okay, so on his return from his meeting with Om Mehta, Bajpai ordered the leaders of the ABVP to apologize unconditionally to Indira Gandhi for indulging in the violence, and ABVP students, they very indignantly retorted that they would rather be in jail, and Indira Gandhi reckoned that she could play on Charan Singh's ego and ambitions to divide her opponents. He detested, Charan Singh detested many more opposition leaders much more than he hated Indira Gandhi. And on 8 January 1977, Charan Singh actually suggested to Indira Gandhi that if she treated him as the principal opposition leader and sidelined the others, then he would cooperate with her in certain areas and he would not oppose her in other spheres. And Indira Gandhi, she really was non-committal about it. So Charan Singh, he pointedly reminded her that he had actually protected her from the Rajanarayan's attacks, and as a result of this, he had actually lost his chief ministership in 1960. And that was because Rajanarayan took his revenge on Charan Singh by withdrawing his party, SSP, the Samyukta Socialist Party, support from Charan Singh's SVD coalition government in Uttar Pradesh. So now again, I just want to refute the popular notion that Indira Gandhi called for elections because the intelligence agencies had told her that she would win easily, since the opposition leaders had been in jail and they were not united. But in the last week of November 1976, after she returned from the Congress party session in Guwahati, she told her principal secretary, Professor Prithvinath Dhar, and my father H.Y. Sharda Prasad, that I'm going to end the emergency and call for elections. I know that I will lose, but this is something which is absolutely necessary for me to do. And in mid-December 1976, before Christmas, P.N. Dhar and P.N. Dhar had been against the emergency from the outset. So P.N. Dhar went to her with the Intelligence Bureau report, which forecasted that she would win 340 seats. And he remarked, "Surely you're not going to believe this, are you? And she replied, "Of course not. The IB will tell me what I want to hear, but I know that I will lose very badly." And even her other close advisor, her former principal secretary, P.N. Haq sir, Parmeshwar Narayan Haq sir, he too had been vociferously opposed to the emergency from the very beginning, and he had been pressing her to hold the elections. And he too told my father in the second week of January 1977, a few days before she made her announcement on All India Radio about the elections, that she was very well aware that she would lose the elections. But I think even then, Indira Gandhi was really taken by surprise by how quickly the disparate opposition groups came together. By 23rd January 1977, the various parties ranging from the left to the extreme right, they agreed to dissolve their existing party structures and merge themselves into the new Janata Party, with Morarji Desai as the chairman and Charan Singh as the vice chairman. And these were, the various socialist groups of George Fernandez, Raj Narayan, and other socialist leaders like Madhu Limaye, Madhu Dandavati, Surendra Mohan, Babu Bindeshwari Prasad, Mandal, BP Mandal of the Mandal Commission fame. And the young Turks of her own Congress party, whom she had jailed, Chandrasekhar, Krishnakant, Mohan Dharia, Ramdhan, Chandrajit Yadav, Lakshmi Kantama. These young Turks were the ones who wanted an understanding with JP right from the very beginning. And then the Bharatiya Lokdal of Chaudhary Charan Singh, Biju Patnaik, H.M. Patel, Chaudhary Devi Lal, Karpuri Thakur, Ram Naresh Yadav. And then, of course, there was the Congress O of Morarji Desai, Neelam Sanjeev Reddy, Chandrabanu Gupta, Ashoka Mehta, and then the Bharatiya Jan Sangh, whose leaders were Nanaji Deshmukh, Atal Bihari Vajpai, Lal Krishna Advani, Bhairav Singh Shekhawat. And then there was Pidu Modi's Swatantra Party of the Zamindars and the right-wing capitalists. And then the general secretaries were Lal Krishnani, Madhulimaye, Surendra Mohan, Ramakrishna Hegde, Nanaji Deshmukh, Ramdhan, and then the 27-member coordination committee was established. And that was its members were Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy, Chandrabhanu Gupta, Ashoka Mehta, H.M. Patel, and Karpuri Thakur. And the CPM, the Akali Dal, and the DMK, they said they would not merge themselves into the Janata Party, but they would be part of the anti-Indira Gandhi alliance. And I think by that time, Jayaprakash Narayan, he had begun to have misgivings about his tying up with the RSS, and he took a pledge from the Janasangh members that they would not campaign on communal issues. And in fact, the Janata coalition campaigned on the election symbols allotted to the Bharatiya Lok Dal of Charan Singh. So I think since time is very short, let me conclude here. We could leave how Morarji Desai was selected in preference to Charan Singh and Jagjeevan Ram. Maybe you could leave that for another seminar, because that again will take a very long time to explain.
Yes.
How Morarji Desai, who had hardly maybe half a dozen MPs supporting him, how my maternal uncle K.S. Radhakrishna actually made Morarji Desai the Prime Minister, even though Charan Singh and had about 100 MPs supporting him. The Bajpai bloc had about 100 MPs supporting him. And Jagjeevan Ram got the support of the Janasangh and the socialists. And then he had his own 28 members of the CFD. And he was in a very strong position to become the Prime Minister. And he had actually prepared his acceptance speech. But at the very last minute, Morarji Desai managed to become the Prime Minister. Maybe you could leave that for another seminar, because that'll take me at least half an hour to explain. Yeah,
Thank you.
So I most gratefully thank the GSDS and especially Professor Randhir Kumar Gautam ji for giving me this opportunity to interact with all of you. And maybe we could now go on to the discussion stage. So thank you so much for your patience in listening to me.
Thank you, Raviji. It is a kind of more insightful than reading books. It is a visual history. The way you explain the whole context before 1977, it was really very rare, I would say. There are some books on the emergency, but the kind of information, the rare information that you brought us is really very, very important and rare. So I request Jayant Singh Tomar ji, being a discussant of today's session, वो अपने कुछ भी विचार साझा करें. जी जयंत जी.
जी नमस्ते रणधीर जी.
जी नमस्कार.
बहुत धन्यवाद, मुझे आपने यहाँ पर अपनी बात रखने का अवसर दिया, लेकिन बहुत संक्षेप में मैं अपनी बात को रखूंगा, जिससे कि हम विजय प्रताप जी को भी सुन सकें. मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा रवि जी को सुनते हुए कि जैसे कि आंखों देखा हाल हम सुन रहे हों आपातकाल का, इमरजेंसी का. जैसे क्रिकेट में आंखों देखा हाल सुनाते हैं सुशील दोषी, ठीक उसी तरह से रवि जी आपातकाल का आंखों देखा हाल सुना रहे थे. मैं चाहूंगा कि हम सब GSDS के साथी ये जो दुर्लभ जो चर्चाएं हैं इनको बाकायदा ट्रांसक्राइब करें और डॉक्यूमेंट के रूप में इसको संभाल के रखें. हम सब जानते हैं कि प्रोफेसर आनंद कुमार जी के मार्गदर्शन में ITM विश्वविद्यालय ग्वालियर में लाइब्रेरी में एक विशेष सेक्शन तैयार हुआ है जो इमरजेंसी पर, आपातकाल पर ही केंद्रित है. और हमारी ये धारणा है कि दिल्ली की नेहरू मेमोरियल लाइब्रेरी में आपातकाल पर जितनी पुस्तकें होंगी उससे कम ITM विश्वविद्यालय ग्वालियर के उस सेक्शन में नहीं होंगी. हम सब, मैं खास तौर पे रवि जी को सुनकर और उनकी बातचीत को सुनकर इसलिए बहुत आह्लादित हुआ कि मैं अपने पत्रकारिता के अध्ययन काल में HY शारदा प्रसाद जी को लगातार उनके लेखों को पढ़ता रहा हूँ. खास तौर पे इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ मास कम्युनिकेशन में जिस समय डायरेक्टर जनरल थे और उनकी निर्देशन में ही वहां से कम्युनिकेटर मैगजीन शुरू हुई थी। और तब से हम जानते हैं कि एस वाई शारदा प्रसाद कितने महत्वपूर्ण व्यक्तित्व थे। उनकी भूमिका कम से कम 3 प्रधानमंत्रियों के कार्यकाल में हम सबको दिखाई देती है। यहाँ पर रवि जी ने इतने कम समय में जिस तरीके से आपातकाल पर अपनी पूरी बात रखी है, वो निश्चित रूप से बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। और हम सब चाहते थे कि अगर समय होता तो और विस्तार से सारी चीजों को सुनते। ओपन मैगजीन में उनके लेख निरंतर आपातकाल पे हम सब पढ़ते रहे हैं और वो बहुत महत्वपूर्ण लेख हैं। थोड़ा सा ये समझना चाहते हैं कि 1972 में जब तक बांग्लादेश का युद्ध चल रहा था, तब तक जयप्रकाश नारायण से बहुत अच्छे संबंध थे इंदिरा जी के। उसके बाद तत्काल वो चंबल में आते हैं, यहाँ पे बागियों के समर्पण के लिए वो आते हैं। और उस समय जयप्रकाश नारायण इंदिरा जी से कहते हैं कि ये जो मृत्युदंड है इसको हटा लिया जाए। इसके लिए वो 2 किताबें इंदिरा जी को भेजते हैं। फिर बागियों का समर्पण होता है और इसके तत्काल बाद हम देखते हैं कि किस तरह से जेपी आपातकाल में अपनी महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका में आते हैं। मुझे हमेशा गांधी शांति प्रतिष्ठान के उस कक्ष को जब देखता हूँ जहाँ से जेपी को 25 जून 1975 को गिरफ्तार किया गया भोर में, तो निश्चित रूप से सबको ही, हम सबको प्रेरणा मिलती है एक ऐसे समय में जब लोकतंत्र को कुठाराघात पहुंचाया गया। लेकिन मैं ये भी समझना चाहता हूँ, मैंने सुना है अनुपम मिश्र जी से उसी भवन में बैठे हुए अनुपम जी ने कहा कि इंदिरा जी ने उसके लिए अगर माफी मांगी है तो उस घटना को भुला देना चाहिए। लेकिन इतिहास तो इतिहास रहता है, हम सब जानते हैं। इसमें सबसे महत्वपूर्ण बात जो मुझे लगी, रवि जी ने कही कि ये जो सरेंडर किया राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक के नेताओं ने, ये एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण जानकारी हमको मिली है और इसका भी मूल्यांकन किया जाना चाहिए। आप सबका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद और रवि जी को खास तौर पे, और हम सब विजय प्रताप जी को सुनेंगे। और मैं रवि जी से निवेदन करूंगा कि जब भी वो ग्वालियर की तरफ आए तो ITM विश्वविद्यालय ग्वालियर जरूर पधारें, हम सब सौभाग्यशाली समझें। बहुत धन्यवाद जी।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद जयंत जी। मैं अब आदरणीय, क्योंकि हम लोगों के पास समय बहुत कम है, तो आदरणीय चेयर आज के श्री विजय प्रताप जी को अपनी भी विचार साझा करने के लिए निमंत्रण करते हैं। जी विजय जी।
नहीं रणधीर जी, मैं एज चेयर बोलने में असमर्थ हूँ, क्योंकि मैंने बहुत गौर से सुना है रवि जी को, और कई तथ्यात्मक जिन चीजों में मैं था उसमें ऐसी कई भूलें भी हो सकती हैं, समय बहुत हो गया, या उनका जो मेन थीसिस है कि इंदिरा जी जो हैं वो RSS और फंडामेंटलिस्टों के खिलाफ हैं, उससे मेरा मौलिक मतभेद है। तो मैं जो है एज चेयर नहीं, एज पार्टिसिपेंट अपनी बात रख रहा हूँ। पहली बात तो ये है। और दूसरा ये है कि उनके प्रति अन्याय ना हो, तो जो उनका विश्लेषण और उनकी राय के जो पक्ष हैं उस पे मैं ओपन में, अभी बताया जैन जी ने, ओपन मैगजीन में उन्होंने लिखा है, और अगर कोई किताब भी हो तो मैं चाहूंगा कि उसका रेफरेंस वो दें तो उसके आधार पे मैं उन ओपिनियन वाली चीजों पे, जैसे कि फंडामेंटलिस्टों के खिलाफ थी, तो ये तो बात सिरे से मैं मानता नहीं हूँ, क्योंकि अगर फंडामेंटलिस्टों के खिलाफ होती तो वो चंद्रशेखर जी, रामधन, जो 4 नाम लिए इन्होंने यंग तक के, उनको क्यों अरेस्ट करती? उन्होंने तो इंदिरा जी के खिलाफ कुछ भी नहीं कहा था। और अगर वो उनकी छवि पहले भी और बाद में भी देखी जाए तो वो तो राष्ट्रीय संवाद की बात कर रहे थे, इंदिरा जी से संवाद की, इंदिरा जी और जेपी के संवाद की कोशिश कर रहे थे। तो अगर फंडामेंटलिस्टों से लड़ना होता और डेमोक्रेसी के लिए उनका, जैसा कि दावा किया है रवि जी ने कि उनका डेमोक्रेसी के लिए कमिटमेंट था, अगर ऐसा होता तो वो इन लोगों को क्यों अरेस्ट करते? पहली बात मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ। दूसरी बात, मैं खुद जेल में था 4 जुलाई 75 से लेके और 22 फरवरी 77 तक, 18 जनवरी को चुनाव घोषित हुआ था और इन्होंने कई लोगों के बारे में जो जेल में हैं एकदम सरासर गलत तथ्य रखे हैं, जैसे कि अरुण जेटली उस समय केवल छात्र संघ के अध्यक्ष भर थे भूतपूर्व और उनकी कोई हैसियत नहीं थी। मैं उनके साथ दो लोग हम थे एक सेल में, मैं और अरुण जेटली, तो इसलिए मैं उनकी 24 घंटे की रूटीन जानता हूँ। संघ और जनसंघ उनको कितना गंभीरता से लेता था, उनकी हैसियत जीरो थी। बल्कि मुझे आज भी याद है कि जगन्नाथ राव जोशी जो संघ के बड़े नेता थे, उनसे जाति पे एक बार हम बहस कर रहे थे कि जाति तोड़ो क्यों जरूरी है, तो उन्होंने अरुण जेटली और मैं एक तरफ थे और जगन्नाथ राव जोशी कह रहे थे कि ये तो सब तंत्र गड़बड़ हो जाए, व्यवस्था सामाजिक गड़बड़ हो जाएगी, तो इसका प्रतिवाद कर रहे थे अरुण जेटली। तो अरुण जेटली उस समय तक आरएसएस की विचारधारा के प्रति एक्सपोज नहीं थे, आरएसएस जनसंघ में उनकी कोई जगह नहीं थी और वो जैसा इन्होंने कहा कि वो सॉलिडेरिटी कन्फाइनमेंट में थे, ये बात सरासर गलत है और वो कहीं किसी बड़े नेता के अलग से संपर्क में नहीं थे। आरएसएस के कुछ बड़े नेता बगल के वार्ड में रहते थे, सुंदर सिंह भंडारी, जगन्नाथ राव जोशी, हंसराज गुप्ता, ये उसमें से कुछ मुख्य नाम हैं। दूसरी बात इन्होंने कही कि केआर मलकानी को सॉलिडरिटी में रखा गया। वार्ड नंबर 1 तिहाड़ जेल, उसमें 13 लोग थे, जिसमें विजय प्रताप जो है वो एक थे और 13वें या पहले सेल में केआर मलकानी थे जो अकेले रहते थे। उससे अगले सेल में रामनाथ विज और एक और सज्जन थे, सुरेश उपाध्याय, जो सुब्रमण्यम स्वामी के साड़ू भाई हैं, और तीसरे में मैं और अरुण जेटली रहते थे। केआर मलकानी कभी भी सॉलिडेरिटी कन्फाइनमेंट में नहीं रखे गए। उसी तरह का तथ्य है कि जॉर्ज फर्नांडीज को कन्फाइनमेंट में नहीं रखा, ये बात भी सरासर गलत है। उनको जैसा, ये बात सही है कि उनको लाल किले में टॉर्चर किया गया, उसके बाद उनको अलग सॉलिटरी में ही रखा गया और एकदम घुप अंधेरे में उनको रखा जाता था। उनके अंतर्राष्ट्रीय नेताओं ने कैसे कैसे किया, कुछ तथ्य इन्होंने बताए हैं, उसके बारे में मैं हाँ और ना नहीं कह सकता। कुछ और तथ्य मैं जानता हूँ जो अभी अप्रासंगिक हैं, लेकिन मूल बात की अंतर्राष्ट्रीय समाजवादी नेताओं ने जॉर्ज फर्नांडीज के लिए अपील की और उस अपील का भी योगदान रहा होगा। तीसरा, जो इन्होंने व्यक्तिगत जानकारी से कहा है कि इंदिरा गांधी को मालूम था ये हार जाएंगी, तो इसके बारे में तो मैं नहीं कह सकता, मेरा एक्सेस ऐसे लोगों तक ज्यादा नहीं था। राधा कृष्ण जी से था, नानाजी देशमुख से बाद में रहा, और आरएसएस के सीनियर मोस्ट लोगों से भी रहा, सुरेंद्र मोहन से रहा जो उस जेल में थे। तो उसी तरह से चरण सिंह जब छूट के गए तो उनके इंदिरा जी से बातचीत चल रही थी, ये बात सही है, लेकिन मैंने खुद एक लंबा पत्र उनको हिंदी में लिखा और सरदार आत्मा सिंह थे अकाली दल के नेता, उनसे ये पत्र लिखवाया कि हमको किसी भी हालत में समझौता नहीं करना है। और उस पत्र को भाई महावीर जो जनसंघ से आए थे चरण सिंह जी की पार्टी में, उन्होंने अनुवाद इंग्लिश में करके, क्योंकि वो उर्दू और इंग्लिश ही जानते थे ज्यादा, तो अनुवाद करके दिया था। और उसकी प्रतिक्रिया ये हुई कि जब जेल से बाहर हम आए 77 के बाद, तो उन्होंने मुझे एल्डर मैन नॉमिनेट करना चाहा, मैं अंडर एज था इसलिए वो बात संभव नहीं हुई। तो इसलिए ये कहना कि इंदिरा जी आरएसएस को खत्म करना चाहती थी, ये बात सही नहीं है। इंदिरा जी तमाम विपक्ष को एक दूसरे से लड़ाना चाहती थी, और अगर आरएसएस से लड़ना था तो जो इन्होंने खुद तथ्य दिया कि संजय गांधी ने वो चिट्ठी फड़वाई जिसमें वो इस्तीफा दे रही थी, अगर वो इस्तीफा दे दिया होता और जगजीवन देवकांत बरुआ जैसे डमी आदमी के बजाय जगजीवन राम बने होते, तो उनको हो सकता है गद्दी वापस नहीं मिलती जो इन्होंने कहा। तो अच्छी बात है ना, अगर लोकतंत्र के प्रति आस्था थी तो नेता को देना चाहिए था ना, कठपुतली को थोड़ी प्रधानमंत्री देना चाहिए था, पर वो कठपुतली को भी देने को तैयार नहीं हुई। तो इस तरह की तमाम बातें ये सिद्ध करने के लिए कि वो फंडामेंटलिस्टों के खिलाफ थी, बाकी नेताओं के नहीं थी, वो लोकतंत्र चाहती थी, ये बातें मेरे हिसाब से तथ्यों से परे हैं। और एक तथ्यों को जोड़ के देखा जाए तो इंदिरा जी की अपनी सत्ता के प्रति जो लालसा है और जो कमिटमेंट है वो एब्सोल्यूट है। ललित नारायण मिश्रा का मर्डर किसने किया, ये उस समय के जो जानकार लोग हैं जैसे आनंद जी हैं उनसे भी पूछ लीजिएगा कि ललित नारायण मिश्रा के मर्डर के बारे में पॉपुलर समझ, वो तथ्य नहीं होगा पर पॉपुलर समझ क्या कही जाती है वो समझा जाए। तो इसलिए बहुत ही समस्या मूलक ये पूरी बात कही गई है। इसको लिख के, और जो बहुत कम एक्टर हैं, विजय नारायण जिंदा हैं, जीजी पारिक जिंदा हैं, तो उन सब से भी उसकी वेटिंग करानी चाहिए और तथ्यात्मक रूप से सही बात होनी चाहिए। ओपिनियन तो अभी भी ये स्वतंत्र हैं अपनी बात कहने को, कि संघ को खत्म करने के लिए, आनंद मार्ग को खत्म करने के लिए, जमायत इस्लामी को खत्म करने के लिए इमरजेंसी लगी, तो ये तो अपनी राय है। इस पे हाँ और ना की लड़ाई तो नहीं हो सकती, ना ही मैं कुछ कहना चाहूंगा, क्योंकि जिस तरह से उनके समय में जगमोहन ने मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशन को हरेस किया, संजय गांधी के कहने पे जिस तरह से सबको नपुंसक बनाया जा रहा था, उसका सबसे बड़ा विरोध मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशन ने किया। अगर वो संघ के खिलाफ होती तो ये चीजें ना होने देती। और जो अपोजिशन निर्णायक हुआ वो दो ही सांस्कृतिक हाशियों के तबकों ने किया। हर दिन अकाली पार्टी उसका विरोध करती, सत्याग्रह करती थी। और उसी तरह से तुर्कमान गेट में जो हिंसा हुई, उसके बाद देश भर का मुसलमान, खासकर उत्तर भारत का मुसलमान पूरी तरह से इंदिरा जी के खिलाफ हो गया था। और जो लोग उस समय के किस्से जानते हैं वो ये बात जानते हैं कि संघ की जो विचारधारा है एंटी मुस्लिम वाली, वो संजय गांधी उसको किस हद तक मानते थे। और एक समय तक, हाल तक वरुण गांधी ने भी जिस तरह से कहा था हम हाथ कटवा देंगे, ये कर देंगे, तो वो, और दोनों माँ बेटा अभी तो भाजपा में है ही हैं और अपनी सीट नहीं छोड़ पा रहे हैं, तो संघ के मानस के साथ थे। इंदिरा जी अंतिम समय में जो है वो हिंदू देवी देवताओं का इस तरह से पब्लिक ढंग से वो करती थी जिससे संघ खुश रहे। और संघ वालों ने माफी मांगी, ये बात सही है, पर संघ वाले तो 42 में भी वो जासूसी करते थे, उसके बाद 48 में जब बैन लगा तब भी उन्होंने माफी मांगी और कहा समर्थन करेंगे हम लोग। और इसमें भी ये 30 नेताओं के जो नाम लिए, उससे पहले ये तब उन्होंने 30 नेताओं ने कहा जब पहले उनके सरसंघ चालक बाला साहब देवरस जो है माफीनामा लिख चुके थे संजय गांधी के 5 सूत्री कार्यक्रम और इंदिरा गांधी के 20 सूत्री कार्यक्रम का समर्थन घोषित कर चुके थे। तो संघ वैचारिक रूप से संजय गांधी और संघ एक थे। इंदिरा जी को अपनी सत्ता के अलावा और उनकी कोई प्रतिबद्धता नहीं थी। चुनाव इसलिए घोषित किया कि इसी व्यवस्था में बहुत लोग, जैसे कुछ का इन्होंने नाम लिया, जो बहुत करीबी इंदिरा जी के थे, वो भी जॉर्ज को शरण दे रहे थे। तो इस तरह व्यवस्था में मैं और भी कई तथ्यों को जानता हूं जो लोग सूचनाएं देते थे विपक्ष को। और चुनाव घोषित होने के बाद भी मेरठ में बीएसएफ के माध्यम से 50 कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसीज में बूथ कैप्चर की योजना बनी थी। उस पे सुरेंद्र मोहन ने तमाम बौद्धिकों के साथ मिलकर बयान दिया कि हमको इस योजना का पता लगा है और बांग्लादेश का उदाहरण सामने है। देश की जनता और कोई भी संस्थान इसको बर्दाश्त नहीं करेगा अगर वो कहीं भी चुनाव में वो करेंगी, बूथ कैप्चरिंग की कोशिश करेंगी। तो इस तरह के अनेक तथ्य हैं जो इनके मूल थीसिस के खिलाफ हैं। जैसे इन्होंने कहा कि सीजी रेड्डी को, सीजी के रेड्डी जो विदेश में घूमते रहे, विदेश में घूमे ये सही बात है, उनका एक अंतर्राष्ट्रीय समाजवादी राय बनाने में उनका बड़ी भूमिका थी और वो हीरो भी थे इस माने में कि 17 लोग आए थे आईएनए से भारत की जमीन पे कुछ काम करने, 16 लोगों को फांसी हो गई और वो अंडर एज थे इसलिए उनको फांसी नहीं हुई। लेकिन मैं संयोग से सीजी के रेड्डी के साथ भी जेल में था। जब एक और नेता बीमार थे तो उनकी सेवा के लिए मैंने वार्ड बदलवाया था अरुण जेटली का साथ छोड़ के, और वार्ड नंबर 15 में थे वो सीजी के रेड्डी, जिन सीजे के रेड्डी का ये नाम ले रहे हैं, बड़ौदा डायनामाइट और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय समाजवादी आंदोलन में उनके साथ में जेल था। तो इसलिए राय अपनी ना बदलें रवि जी, लेकिन तथ्य की थोड़ा गहराई से जांच कर लें, और फिर उस नए तथ्यों के प्रकाश में उनकी जो राय बनती है उस पे मैं उनसे संवाद करने को 1 दिन 2 दिन, जब जितना उनको समय निकले, जूम से प्रत्यक्ष में संवाद करने को तैयार हूं। धन्यवाद।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। ये तो ऐसी बात है कि तथ्य, ओपिनियन और विजय प्रताप जी का हम लोगों का जो मार्गदर्शन है वो आने वाले समय के लिए भी एक ऐसा रहेगा, क्योंकि ये जो कंटेस्टेड हिस्ट्री है जहाँ पे ओपिनियन बनाए जाते हैं और उसको कैसे गहराई से साइंटिफिकली हिस्टोरिकल प्रोसेस को कैसे समझा जाए, इसमें विजय जी, आनंद जी और इन लोगों का जो सर्किल है वो हमेशा मददगार होगा। और रवि जी आपका बहुत बहुत आभार, जयंत जी आपका बहुत बहुत आभार। लगभग 30-35 लोग जुड़े हुए थे और अभी तक 23 लोग जुड़े हुए हैं, और 1.5 घंटा कैसे निकल गया ये बिल्कुल नहीं पता चला। तो ये एक बहुत अच्छी चीज है कि GSDS फोरम पे हमें ऐसे स्कॉलर मिल रहे हैं जो एक पर्सनल हिस्ट्री के साथ साथ वो जो कंटेस्टेड हिस्ट्री है वहाँ भी हम लोग पहुंचने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। और आप सबों का GSDS के इस फोरम के संवाद में जुड़ने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मोदी जी, प्रोफेसर ज्ञान गुलोई, प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर नीलम, प्रोफेसर नरेश कुमार, राम शरण जी और बहुत सारे साथी जो सोशल मूवमेंट से भी जुड़े हुए हैं, उन लोगों ने भी काफी धैर्य के साथ इस कॉन्वर्सेशन को सुना। और आने वाले समय में हम रवि विश्वेश्वरैया प्रसाद जी को पुनः इमरजेंसी के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अपनी बात को संवाद के लिए हम बुलाएंगे। तो आप सब लोगों से शुभ रात्रि और विदा लेते हैं कि बहुत धन्यवाद।